We've gotten away from using the term retard as an insult or in casual language in modern American society because it's not good for people who actually suffer from Down syndrome. It's not good for their families and their friends. It's not good to use that term about people with other cognitive and intellectual limitations. But this apparently hasn't stopped the Iranian president from seemingly seriously claiming that Donald Trump suffers from mental retardation. This was during a live televised address, at least partially commenting on the new U.S. sanctions against Iran that President Donald Trump has announced. Donald Trump, of course, imposing these new sanctions on Iran. The Iranian President Hassan Rouhani calling the sanctions outrageous and idiotic, and adding that, quote, the White House is afflicted by mental retardation and does not know what to do. As translated and reported by the Associated Press from the native Farsi, there are other translations that are a little bit softer, suggesting that the terms cognitive limitations or something along those lines were actually what was used. A disagreement about exactly how it should be translated from Farsi. Now, almost as importantly, but maybe not quite pragmatically, the Iranian president also saying, quote, you sanction the foreign minister simultaneously with a request for talks. And this goes to the erratic and sort of a very strange nature of what Donald Trump has been doing with regard to Iran that I talked about in the first segment, in which we discussed the undeniable reality that in the end, when you put the bluster and the rhetoric aside, Donald Trump's actual actions are going mostly in line with what a Vladimir Putin with Russia as the top priority would want Donald Trump to do. If 4 years ago I had told you that in 2019, world leaders would be calling each other Rocket Man and mentally retarded, I wouldn't have believed it. Maybe some in our audience would, but here we are in 2019, and there's this hilarious double standard among Trumpists who all of a sudden now are pretending that mentally retarded is outside the lines and an inappropriate way to talk about Donald Trump when they've spent the last almost 4 years calling anyone that disagrees with them a cuck. World politics under Obama. Let's generate productive dialogue for the mutual betterment of all humans on Earth. World politics under Trump. Who's the biggest retard or cuck or low energy person? And truly, to take this seriously for a second, because it is serious, people with Down syndrome often care about others and express significant empathy. Donald Trump actually seems to be completely lacking that. Like, aside from this being meant as an apparent insult, most people with intellectual disabilities seem to be better people than Donald Trump, who exhibits cruelty, his bullying nature, greediness, complete self-absorption in every way. And Trump, meanwhile, responding that the Iranian president's mom is gay or something like that. I'm kidding. But seriously, Trump is actually unstable enough that calling him mentally retarded could actually trigger a war. It could actually trigger military action. Remember that Donald Trump just a few days ago approved a strike on Iran without even considering civilian casualties. Later, he was told what they would be, I believe about 150, and then he canceled the attack, or at least he claims that's the reason why. This has the potential to completely derail Trump. And meanwhile, the Trump administration is still preaching it has leverage around the Iran deal, which Trump backed out of. John Bolton, Donald Trump's national security advisor, again is saying all options remain on the table with Iran if they exceed the uranium enrichment limit that is put in place by the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Trump pulled us out of the deal. The United States has no authority to enforce that deal because Trump pulled us out of it. You can have the discussion, and we have had it already, by the way. You can argue there are still other signatories to the Iran nuclear deal that have not backed out. The UK, Germany, our European allies. And maybe you could say they have the leverage to enforce or demand the enforcement of that deal, although the United States has made it quite difficult for them to actually do that. The United States has given away all credibility and leverage to demand adhering to that deal, given that we pulled out of it. And it is absolutely pathetic that even on corporate media, some Trump flackies, flacks or flunkies, flackies. I think that's going to be another urban dictionary term. Trump flunkies are being allowed to say this, that, hey, Iran still has to stick to that deal. That's going to be up to our allies to decide whether they want to or can even enforce that after the United States has departed from the deal. No one in the Trump administration should even be mentioning the requirements of the Iran deal because we are no longer part of that deal. If you disagree with me, let me know. I'm on Twitter at @dpakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show.